May get some hate from this video, but let me just say I'm not poking fun or talking bad about any particular group or individuals in the traditional Catholic circle, especially since I probably skew more towards that direction. I guarantee if you put me in a room with a bunch of Catholics, the Novus Ordos would classify me as a capital C T traditionalist, and the traditionalists would probably call me a Novus Ordo sympathizer. But that's kind of the problem I'll get into in this kind of divisive Catholic culture that we're in. But even after being involved with these various groups at a diocesan level, where I'm kind of heavily going to a traditional Latin Mass, but I also go to the Novus Ordo Mass, and kind of also listening to just traditional, regular Catholic media that's kind of out there, I honestly just found I need a break from the kind of the Rad Trads side of things, just to kind of say that tongue in cheek. And I'll kind of apologize one more time to be clear that, again, I'm not talking about any specific individual or the group as a whole, because I know there's a lot of specific individuals who consider themselves traditional devout Catholics that really don't subscribe or listen or really make up the stereotype of what a traditional Catholic may or may be. And so, again, pointing this out again, so just saying that some of these groups, I think, in my opinion, really are kind of doing more harm to traditional Catholics and Catholicism in general at times. And what I'm finding, and while this might be obvious to many, is that the traditional Catholic content that really kind of gets pushed to the top of the algorithms generally is always the most kind of scandalous, generally the most negative in nature. And I'm guilty. I'm not saying I'm not a consumer of these things. I'm guilty of consuming this stuff. I'm sure I'm consuming more in the future, although I try to actually, I have been for a while now, trying to limit the consumption of this. And you guys, I made a whole video on this channel just talking about how I like Michael Voris, I like Church Militant, what they're doing. I think the content they're doing is needed for sure, but I think we have to be a little mindful. I'm not telling them what to do, but I think that some of this content put in the wrong minds, which I'll kind of get into, really kind of does the Catholic Church a disservice, not only just to kind of just polluting the church from the inside, but also it's not doing a good job of bringing people into the church. And what I'm finding, at least in my small groups in my diocese that I'm involved with, there's some that I actually am kind of like the moderator or just kind of leader of these different Bible studies, where we get some traditionalists mixed in with some of the just regular Novus Ordo people in the diocese, is that it's kind of getting to the point where there's some really uncomfortable conversations that come in and just kind of negative energy where I have no problem people voicing their concerns of the church and, expressing themselves. There's nothing wrong with that. But when you get is some people that are taking some things they're hearing, you can tell from Catholic media outlets, because you can see there's like a talk of the day, the talk of the week in the Catholic circles. And then this stuff is kind of filtering into the small groups where people are saying things that really you don't know for sure are even true. I mean, everyone's entitled to an opinion and can speculate in some things, but especially as Catholics, we're supposed to be kind of charitable. We have to be really careful of the things we're coming out with a very strong opinion on, and just basically just kind of LARPing off of what we're kind of hearing on the Catholic media or the traditional Catholic media, which I think it's actually been spreading to just other areas of just regular Catholicism, which again has good things and bad things. Especially when it comes to things like the Pope. I'm not giving him a pass by any stretch of the means, but I actually just ordered that St. Gallen Mafia books. I'm not saying, not to be hypocritical, that I don't look into some of these things, but I think that I made a video on this, that you have to be really careful, especially as a Catholic. It's in our catechism, really. If you don't know for sure, obviously we shouldn't be gossiping, but that aside, if you're talking about something or assuming someone might have ill will, you're really not supposed to. Essentially, always giving someone the benefit of the doubt, because again, you don't really know the whole context of what's going on. You don't know where they're coming from. You don't know what their heart is, and you really just don't know the whole side of the story. Us just getting news, and this goes for essentially everything, but especially in our religion. If you're hearing any news that's coming out there, I think we all know how the media kind of works. We all know, again, for better or for worse, how the news that we as consumers like to listen to and what gets pushed to the top. Just because it's there, especially in the Catholic sphere, doesn't necessarily make it true. I'm just saying this again. It's not like I don't do this. It's not like I have my own problems with the Pope and I might think about some things that he may be doing might be incorrect, or especially political figures, figures outside of religion. Trying to give someone that I really disagree with the benefit of the doubt can be hard to do, but that is the charitable Christian thing we're supposed to do. And I think the big thing that I really wanted to say this with is, for me personally, this has been kind of driving me away from traditional Catholicism. And I love traditional Catholicism. I love the traditional Latin Mass. if you gave me the option of doing this, the rest of my life, for sure, be the traditional Latin Mass. But it's gotten to the point where these communities, as much as I probably agree with 90+% of the stuff they're saying, it really makes me kind of want to go back to just the regular Novus Ordo masses in some of the situations this is getting to. And it's kind of unfair because I'm sure it's not for everybody, especially at least in my diocese or at regular Latin Mass attendees that I'm going to. It's a few people that are really vocal about this. But I think this is going to drive people away. I know people personally that are very close to me. They're thinking about joining the church. And they just don't feel comfortable in that environment. It's not that they don't agree with what the people are saying or might have more sentiments to their side. It's just that it's not the place that you really don't want to be in any kind of overly political arena. And I know, it's easy for us. We usually criticize the kind of liberal Catholics for politicizing the local bulletin, but we're kind of not quick to look at ourselves when, we're talking politics or we assume someone is feeling about a certain way that we're feeling. And I think, sometimes to be fair, right? I mean, I think the issue is whenever something does get political, it doesn't match with the catechism. I think usually it's what our problem is, or it's some sort of ideology they're kind of warping. But I think that this kind of energy in the church just kind of has to be, we have to be kind of mindful of this stuff, because I know for the people that I know personally, they don't want to go to that type of church. As much as reverent as it is, as devout as it is, as serious and how much it creates just the ideal prayer environment and worship and sacrifice environment, it's still not an environment that some people are really going to feel comfortable in. You kind of feel like you're not part of this club. You don't feel like you have the exact same kind of culture and ideas that they have. Not that everything has to be kind of morphed to fit your needs. Like, I'm not saying be cafeteria Catholic, but one is more extreme than the other as far as having a hard stance in the line as far as total groupthink. So going back to the Novus Ordo, I actually, don't get me wrong, I mean, there's things going back to Novus Ordo parishes again and masses that I had my issues with and I'm kind of reconciling with. But on the flip side, it is good to see just kind of more lighthearted, smiling faces. Yes, you could argue possibly the devoutness, you don't see as much of a visual of that. But even this has been a hard lesson that just because, again, someone can be doing pious actions, they're reading a lot of religious books, they're doing a lot of gestures, we don't see the interior of their hearts, and that's something I'm always mindful of. It's something I'm always learning. There's some of the most religious and most devout and just sincere, nice people that I meet go to these Novus Ordo parishes. They want the best for the Catholic Church just like we do. And even they just feel a little bit different and as kind of ostracized from traditional Latin Mass communities when, again, they're by the book Catholics. There's nothing they don't want to change as far as anything from the catechism. They're not liberalized in any sense of the means, but even they feel like something's just different in that side as far as the culture, not necessarily the liturgy. So kind of a little rant video, but this is just me sharing my experience where I'm trying to actually been distancing myself from a community that otherwise was really enjoying. And I think a lot of it just has to do with how far the Catholic media, in my opinion, this is kind of what I'm getting at, the Catholic media is what they're pushing out and then how that's kind of spreading to the diocese. And I never thought I'd say this, but I'm almost getting sympathetic sometimes, or at least a little bit sympathetic to the argument that the traditional Latin Mass can be divisive. I know it's a very controversial statement, maybe or maybe it might be, may or not be, I don't know. But that is something that I'm kind of seeing. At least I can sympathize or empathize with what Novus Ordo type Catholics or regular, fair weather Catholics, you want to say that, think of the Latin Mass. But that's just my two thoughts. Curious to see what you guys are seeing. If you guys are having any kind of similar experiences, if you want to say I'm way off, I definitely would take it. Just me kind of getting something off my back. But that's it.